Thanks to our business partner for supporting us. So next speaker is Omar Veledar. He's the innovation manager at the company AVL, joining us from Austria. His talk is about dependable autonomous driving, leveraging humanistic intelligence to optimize. Omar received his PhD at the University of Northumbria at Newcastle before receiving his professional MBA at WU Executive Academy. And after that, he was the postdoctoral researcher associate at the University of Sheffield. And currently, he is a lecturer at the Technische Universität Graz and co-chair of the Smart Mobility Working Group at IEOT, and has over 10 years of experience at the company AVL. Sorry, Omar, welcome to the stage.
Hi, thank you, and my apologies for picking a complicated title for the presentation.
No, it's not. I think I'm a little bit starting to get tired, so I will grab my coffee and enjoy your presentation. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much. So hi all, and thanks for the invitation to present some of our activities. As you have just heard, the title is not simple, so I might need to go a little bit into it. If you come from the automotive industry, then it's quite self-explanatory. There's not much to dwell about it. But for those that haven't had the pleasure to deal with us in the automotive world, so they might be somewhat confused. So let's try to go into the details. So dependable is a word that includes all those aspects that make people trust and wish to use the product. So it's about safety, security, reliability, maintainability. So all those things that make you happy with the things that you use, either products or services. When we talk about autonomous driving, it's basically the Dr. Jekyll of the automotive world. So it basically eases the mobility. However, the Mr. Hyde side is something that's represented by the vast amount of data. So I'm afraid they come as a polarized components together. Different people provide different estimates, but the general agreement is that we are talking about tens of gigabytes of data per each hour of usage. On top of that, you're also going to be generating some data when you're talking about autonomous driving, even when you are not using the vehicle. So even if it's just parked on the side of the road. So it's not an issue that should be treated lightly. You definitely need to give it a certain amount of consideration. The subtitle itself gives away the need to make some more humanistic applications. So we are not only talking about technical solutions, but we have to put the person, the human being, into the center of your system. By that I mean in terms of decision making and also in terms of providing services that are expected by the market. So we went through 3 industrial revolutions, and we are undergoing the 4th. Many claim that we're also going through the 5th one as well, which especially became apparent as a result of the pandemic. Each one of those past revolutions had opponents most of the time, and there were always the claims of human superiority. So many will still claim the lack of trust in machines, just as many did with every previous industrial revolution. The question is, where do you sit? Are you sitting on one or the other side of the fence, or are you just comfortably sitting on the fence itself? With every presentation at any conference, with every kind of lecture you give, people will always say, there will always be somebody who will say, hey, but I would prefer to make my own decisions, and I'm more efficient than your machine or whatever. But just as with every industrial revolution, there was some kind of advancement as a result of introduction of something new, something innovative. It's the same with the autonomous driving. You can just think about maybe in terms of people driving for longer periods of time, people are driving under influences of different substances, be it legal or illegal, and so on. So there are definitely the moments when machines are going to be helpful in a very obvious way. At the same time, if you think about even not so obvious way, so you can just think about the flow of traffic through the cities at the rush hour. If machines follow each other, you're going to basically reduce this amount of traffic jam, and you're simply going to be more efficient. If we think about the purpose of this work, so the elementary question is why? Why are we going in this direction? Why are we doing what we are doing? Does it make sense to go in this direction? There are 4 key automotive trends at the moment. There are more, but these are kind of the crucial ones that are also contributing to quite considerable automotive revolution. We have to think about automotive industry as something that's been in existence for the past 100 and so years. It's a very, very large ship. It doesn't move very easily. And it has not changed much most of the time. It has evolved quite a lot, but this evolution is very kind of slow, steady, predictable evolution. Even though it's changed hugely in terms of outputs, the way the things have been done in the past was always kind of quite similar, or the changes were quite steady. The current situation is somewhat different, so we're definitely going through a revolution in the automotive world, and that is definitely supported by these 4 key trends. The first one is electrification, and it's one of the drivers towards greener world. Different people have different reasons why they want to go in that direction. Some are genuine, some not so. But if you're working with the assumption that you know what you're doing and you're doing in a strategic way, then electrification is definitely a part of that kind of solution towards a greener world. Connectivity is a kind of coincided at the right moment, and it's a technology supporter of the more effective solutions and improved user experience. So it's not it basically became a key technology driver of this revolution. Mobility is a need for the seamless. It's basically seen in the need for the seamless move from point A to point B, whatever those points are, wherever they happen to be. And this is always often combined with the shared mobility or automated mobility and so on, maybe the last mile solutions and stuff like that. So mobility is definitely becoming a more complex issue, and it's no longer the matter of, I want to own a vehicle and I'm going to buy it and use it when I want. It's becoming more complex issue where fewer and fewer people actually want to see the cars as something they own. They maybe rent it, they share it. They see it just a means to get somewhere, as opposed to kind of status symbol, as it has done sometimes in the past, and it still does with many. And then there's autonomous driving, and it's the way of further easing that quest for eased mobility. It's basically gives you an opportunity to be a little bit more free and to do what you wish when you wish, without necessarily the need for full personal involvement. It's clearly a trend, but the question is it justified? Why are we heading there? What is the purpose? Are we just jumping on a bandwagon? Who has been the main driver of this trend? It does not happen very often, but in this case, we are kind of quite lucky. So the trend is supported by both, by the technology push from one side, and then from the market, with the market pull from the other side. In practice, that means that the new cyber-physical system solutions, the connectivity solutions, the new methods of dealing with data and analytics, the artificial intelligence approaches, and so on, they are all driving towards taking this trend ahead and providing solutions that are expected by the market itself. The market expectation is, again, kind of pulling these technology solutions, not just to be the technology itself, but actually to go from the let's call it basic research and development, to the actual full market application that's then useful for the market and can be marketed. To make the story even more compatible or maybe easier for us, there are also the societal expectations, and many of which are driving towards the same goal. So this is basically the things that are being put in legislation as a result of the need to be more green, or because there's a need for increased mobility, or because there's an aging population and you need to have that increased mobility, because there is a need for reduced congestion, fewer cars on the roads, and so on. What it means in practice is that we seem to have a kind of blank check to work towards providing solution. The blank check is there only in terms of the goal. It would be nice if it was there in terms of everything. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way for us. It's not there in terms of how to get there. So the goals are kind of clear, and we know where we need to be, but there's still quite a bit of work to be done in terms of providing those solutions and then also standardizing those, because what happens quite often, people provide different solutions in different corners of the world, and they're not necessarily compatible with each other. So the path is not always very clear how to get there. We know where we need to get, but the path how to get there is not clear, and this is where data helps quite often. So if we assume that my justification or justification of the automotive world is accurate, then we need to think about the direction we're taking. We need to think about the challenges that we are facing on our path there. And this is where the data is the key. The reason for it is quite simple. It's simple, but unfortunately not very easy. The data helps to deal with the complexity of the situation. For example, if we talk about sensor fusion, so it's not necessarily easy to deal with all the data that's provided by the vehicles in general, especially with the autonomous driving. So a vehicle has a huge number of sensors. Each one of those is contributing to those tens of gigabytes that I mentioned earlier for each hour of usage. And these are then further fused together, because you don't necessarily rely only on one of them or maybe even two, but you have to try to find the optimal solution that in each specific environment you can get useful information, and you can control the vehicle as a result of that information that you are given. We are talking about cars being driven in all kinds of weather conditions, in all kinds of environment, in all kinds of times of day and night, in all kinds of ways, manners, basically sometimes even outside of the specification and so on. And this huge amount of data is there to support right decision making. And this is crucial because we are talking about safety critical systems. We are talking about systems that if they fail at the end of the day, somebody can potentially die. It's not about somebody can, but people do die regularly on the roads, unfortunately. And this is where AI is supportive, especially AI at the edge. So if you're making a huge amounts of data, you don't necessarily want to beam all this data to the cloud and try to make decisions somewhere high up there. But you're trying to make decisions locally at the place where they are most needed, at a time when they are most needed. You don't necessarily wish to deal with time delays. And then when you have made these decisions, you don't necessarily also want to forget about all these things that you have done. You also want to learn from your decision making, and you want to basically federate that learning so that your systems in general can improve over the time. Why do we do this? It's very simple. You can have the best solution in the world ever generated tomorrow. You can offer it to the market, and the market can simply reject it. There are plenty of examples from the past where there were beautiful scientific solutions offered to the world, beautiful technical solutions that were very useful and would be very beneficial, but they were simply rejected as a result of maybe lack of trust or simply lack of the acceptance. So this is where the data is very helpful, so that we can make start making the right decisions, and this decision making is definitely supported by the AI. Why do we use AI? It's very simple answer, unfortunately not very simple solution. The complexity of the system is such that it's no longer possible to make the right decisions with simple intelligence. You need to have some kind of more sophisticated intelligence available to be able to make the right decisions. Again, we are talking about safety critical systems. So you need to make the right decision at the right time. Also, what happens if you detect a fault in your system? You don't necessarily wish to do what used to be done in the past and is still done to the present day. You don't necessarily want to park the car on the side of the road and wait for the road assistance or take your car to the garage to be fixed. You basically have to be operational even in the situations when things are not the way you wish them to be. So this is where things like predictive maintenance come into play, or parallelism, be parallelism of hardware or software, and so on. And to be able to provide these solutions, to be able to detect when the things are not going to be the way you expect them to be, this is where you need the data. In order to analyze this huge amount of data, this is where you need the artificial intelligence. Not possible to be done in traditional ways anymore. The natural question in this case is artificial intelligence a messiah, or is it just a naughty boy? Does it really offer solutions? Is it controllable? What about the issues with the safety? Can we have the black box effect? Should we focus on explainability? The automotive world is very conservative when it comes to providing the solutions to the market, and the reason is the safety. We go back to it again. Safety is the part of the dependability. That is hence the title of the talk. It helps, it's for sure. However, it also causes issues in this kind of environment, which is highly dominated by the safety engineering. The safety engineers are the ones who wish to have every possible eventuality tested, first considered and then tested and made sure that nothing could possibly go wrong, because we are talking again about safety critical system. The implication there is that we need to find the right solutions where the artificial intelligence is enveloped within the constraints of the safety engineering, so that we can provide a system so that engulfs the two that are compatible with each other. So there's a fight between those two worlds, and we need to find a way to make them compatible with each other. In order to do that, to provide the right solution, very often what happens is people focus on just technical solutions. We may not forget that we need to have a human, and the human is not just an added component at the end. Human has to be there in the middle, in the center. So we're talking about human-centric approaches, human-centric development. We have to start with the human being, with the human requirements. We have to think about the way the decisions are made. They have to appear to be as kind of human-like as possible. And we have to partially also remove this black box effect. So if you're driving in a car and for whatever reason the car starts slowing down, you have to provide some kind of explanation to them to be able to actually understand, not to be scared of your decision making, and to be able to accept your product or your services that you're offering. The box is open. Whether it's Pandora's box or something else, I don't know. Depends from which perspective you look at it. There's plenty of things that need to be considered in this case. So we're talking about new sensors, new actuators, the compatibility of the two. How do you deal with them? What kind of information do you get from them? How do you deal with all this data? The data is huge. It has to be dealt at the edge. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to provide dependable solutions. We are talking about learning, but we're also talking about relearning. What happens if the situations change? Do you basically forget everything you have known before, or do you just try to add to it? We need to think about integrative solutions. It's not about different people providing things in the different corners of the world and then they somehow just kind of get bunched together and it works. We need to think about putting all these things together, and we need to think about a human being as a part of it. There are other issues like standardization, energy efficiency, and so on. The key here is, at the moment, is the key things are the standardization. So basically that everybody's working in the same direction and the different systems are compatible with each other. Then there's a skills gap. There's definitely silos way of working, and very often the data scientists and engineers, and then especially the business world, have this huge gap in between, and it's not easy to bridge the gap so that they talk to each other and provide this kind of integrative solution I just talked about. And then at the end of the day, it's about the business. As I mentioned earlier, no matter how good your solution is, you need to have some kind of trust in your products, in your assets, in your services, and that trust is going to create some kind of acceptance of your assets, and then through this you are capable of then providing the value to the market, and then providing sustainable solutions. In conclusion, the autonomous driving is inevitable. We're going in that direction. It's not only a trend; it's definitely something that's become a part of the automotive world, not just as a trend, but as a kind of main substance. There's this push-pull alignment between the technology solutions and market expectation. The relevant data is the key, that's for sure. And the only way we are going to create the required acceptance is through the dependable solutions. There's a need for ambidexterity. What I mean by that is the need for providing the right solutions, so searching for the right solutions, doing your R&D activities, if you wish, and at the same time to combine it with the business. So the two worlds have to work with each other. We have to have human-centered approaches because of the acceptance, and that's the only way to provide the sustainable business at the end of the day. In principle, that's the conclusion to my talk. Feel free to ask any questions you wish.
Thank you, Omar. It is a really valuable presentation. I want to encourage the audience to ask questions and to get engaged in the conversation. In the meantime, I really loved what you said, that we need to a little bit close the gap between the business side and the technological side. It's super important. In regards of, would you have some maybe advice to people who want to join automotive industry as engineers or from a business side, and how they can improve their skills?
A dangerous question, because I have a very dangerous answer to that. When I came for so originally I trained as an electronic engineer, that went into physics, very kind of practical, applied physics, but for the very theoretical physicists. And then I just wanted to do a change, and I came for an interview in AVL a while ago, and I had two questions. One of them was, what do you know about us? And my answer was, well, only the things I read on your website. And the second question is, what do you know about cars? And I said, well, nothing, and I'm not interested. And I was offered the position, and I was interviewed by two different people. One was very traditional, and he was not interested in dealing with people who were not interested in the cars. And the other one was the very open-minded one, who really wanted to get different perspectives. So maybe the answer to your question is, if you wish to participate in the automotive world, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an automotive engineer. especially nowadays, the automotive world is definitely changing. There's definite need for mathematicians, for statisticians, for data scientists. Digitalization is turning the automotive into something completely different. We are no longer talking about products, we are talking about services, and we are talking about sharing things. I have so many friends who live in big cities, and they basically sold their cars and they said, I never want to own a car again, because there's a metro, there's a Uber, there is a shared service or whatever. So there is definite need for people from very different backgrounds, technical or business. And don't be afraid to, just approach people and ask if you wish to participate in the automotive industry. If you don't ask, you don't get. It's as simple as that. And it doesn't mean that you have to be I've worked in this company for almost 11 years now. I still have no interest in cars, to be honest, privately. What I'm interested in solutions and trying to find the appropriate ways to deliver those solutions, technical ones, and then also make a sustainable business out of it. So don't be afraid. That's my advice.
Awesome. That's a cool encouragement story. Especially, I know one female CEO. She is running a really huge now company related to like creating the solutions from automotive industry, and she never owned a car until like her 35 years old. So she really shared that kind of story. So it's a little bit similar. Yeah, and
I work in a company of 11,000 people, and we are still privately owned business. And our CEO, who's basically the head of the family that owns the company as well, he still claims that he doesn't own a car. But so I'm not quite sure about it, but he always claimed it. And the reason is simple, because of, we cannot disclose to one customer that we have a car that we use from them and not to the other customer. So he really doesn't own a car. But yeah, if he needs to be driven around, there are ways to do it without owning one.
Awesome. And maybe you can share something related to, for example, if somebody wants to create some product related to automotive industry, and what you mentioned, it's really important to have a good product market fit. Do you have some advice in that direction?
You're talking about barriers to entry, basically. If you're talking about more kind of software-like solutions, it's not as complex as it used to be. So you need a laptop and a corner of a room, and you can start dealing with things. If you are talking about hardware solutions, well, then basically you can pretty much forget it, because the barrier to this entry is huge. Open innovation, you need to search for people who are prepared to collaborate, who are prepared to innovate through openness, and simply jump on board any kind of project where you can develop things together, because by demonstrating what you're capable of, then one thing leads to another, and you have a sustainable business model.
Awesome. And a lot of interesting things are happening. We had the lecture, sorry for background noise, I don't know what's happening, but recently I participated in conversation with a leader in a startup nation, Israeli. A lot of investments are happening in this industry, so it's easier to find an accelerator or some kind of education and a help how to start in that term, and how to understand, are you going into the right direction? Yeah.
They have quite a good startup community, which is very well supported. And I mean, there are a few places in Europe where that exists, and trying to collaborate with people in these kind of communities is very helpful, because it's like the world has changed. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people were not so prepared. They were much more closed. They were not so prepared to share the ideas. It's not about the idea. Most of the ideas you have, somebody has already thought about it before. It's about implementation. So don't be afraid to share, to learn together, to develop together. Somebody might steal something from you at the end of the day. That's true. But at the end of the day, if you are capable of providing, of implementing in a right way, nobody can steal your relationships. Nobody can steal your implementation.
That's true. Thank you for the closing remark. We are out of time, so I'm really happy that you joined to the Data Science Conference, and we're moving to the next slot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.